So, a mother smothers her three kids, her three children. She smothers them to death. But before she does so, she sings a lullaby. That's a very rather odd, strange, and bizarre way, yes, to end it out. Like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery Channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery Channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as the ID Go app. You might want to get those two things combined and make them into one. And I'm a Discovery influencer. So, a mother sings a lullaby to each of her children before smothering them to death. Location, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona, to be specific. Yes, 22-year-old Rachel Henry. She faces 3 counts of first-degree murder in relation to the deaths of her 6-month-old child, as well as her 1-year-old child and her 3-year-old child. She confessed. When I get to thinking about, dear viewers, visually, especially a 6-month-old, to smother a 6-month-old to death and you're singing lullabies, that's to ask, why did that play out, right? That's an issue. So she confessed. Yes, the mother of all 3. She indeed confessed. Did the picture flash already? Let me pause my screen. Hold on. I just had it a second ago. It should roll back around. But when it comes to what would be a mother's reason to give birth to 3 children and then want to smother them to death? I know life gets hard at times, right? Some people can't bear hard times, as in we've all endured, right? Various things, but what could have been the reason? A relative to the children, they dialed 911. The relative indeed dialed 911, right? Ending in officers finding the bodies of the 3 children. CPR was tried on the children by responders. Yet the children were pronounced dead. The 1-year-old is said to have been the first victim. So it was the 1-year-old that died first. The mother of the children, she wrestled the child in a playful manner. So she basically wrestled the child to act like she was playing when her intention was in fact to smother the child. She placed her hand over the child's mouth, and as such was taking place, the 3-year-old then proceeded to yell and punch his mother. The 3-year-old witnessed what she was doing. That's her up above. The 3-year-old didn't like what mommy was doing to the 1-year-old, as in the 3-year-old could sense that death or something was coming. Even children have intuition, right? So once again, as she was attempting to smother the child, the 3-year-old proceeded to yell and punch his mother. That was his attempt, was to get her to stop, right? Yelling and kicking her. Yeah. Because you know 3-year-olds are indeed smart, right? They're not gonna want to sit and watch their 1-year-old sibling be smothered to death. I'm saying that's terrifying in itself. There's 3-year-olds that in fact know what is going on. They just don't know why it's going on, right? Yeah. And even that's genius in itself for even a 3-year-old to even make sense. A 3-year-old mind to make sense to what even mommy is doing, right? That little boy was in fact kicking her. Not kicking her, punching her, I'm sorry. The little boy was indeed punching her as she was smothering a child, but yet the child that she was indeed smothering was indeed kicking. The kid, of course, a kid, because to try to gasp for air and yet your mother is smothering you, as I say, you're going to be kicking your feet and possibly flailing your arms to try to, yes, because even that feels like an attack for a mother to smother you in that way. You're going to try to do everything to try to get away. And yet, in the end, the smothering process resulted in the child dying right there, as in the child stopped kicking while the child was being smothered, and right then the mother knew that she had killed her child, that 1-year-old, right? So soon after, the mother chased the 3-year-old. That was right after she killed the 1-year-old. She chased the 3-year-old after killing that 1-year-old, and then the child's father as well as the aunt interrupted her chasing the 3-year-old. That photo is not supposed to be there. When I set up my stuff, there's a whole lot going on, because I pulled 2 photos out and then put her photo, but somehow where I placed, they were indeed in the same folder. Hopefully I don't forget to take that one out. But so for a mother, because see, that's not a lot of children, it is and it isn't, right? But for her age, for you to be that age, and you have, because remember, she was young, right? That's a lot of children for her. 3 children for her age is a lot, right? That's the X. Why did she have them in the first place? Sometimes misery loves company, right? You might be unhappy with life, so you choose to have kids, and then when you find out that they don't bring happiness or excitement, right, you put their lives to an end. People have been known to do that, as well as commit suicide and stuff, right? And so the 3-year-old, as she was chasing, once again, let me go back. As she was chasing the 3-year-old, it was the child's father, as well as the aunt, that interrupt her while she was chasing the child. So she then allowed the 3-year-old, she stopped the chasing of the 3-year-old. She then allowed the 3-year-old to play for a little while with one of the relatives, family member. She allowed that 3-year-old to play before she killed the 3-year-old. That's interesting in itself. It's bizarre activity. Because see, what came to my mind was that 3-year-old could have sat right there. Remember, the 3-year-old watched everything take place. The 3-year-old watched the mother, as in tried to fight off the mother from killing the other sibling of the 3-year-old, right? 3-year-old watched everything. And so it's bizarre to me that she allowed that child to sit and play with the relative, because to know 3-year-olds are known to talk a lot, as in come out their mouth and say what they just seen took place. That could be one of the reasons why she killed the 3-year-old as well, right? Because I know a 3-year-old is witnessing things, as in mommy is killing people, as I say, that 3-year-old can go in any environment and just not the home environment and tell other people, right? Which is why some people have been known to kill other people, including their own kids, right? But to know that she was going to kill the child anyway, you can tell, because to know that she killed a 6-month-old who couldn't talk at all, as I say, her sole intention was to kill them anyway, even if the 3-year-old did know too much, right? I'm able to see that far. As in, she just didn't kill that 3-year-old because a 3-year-old could have stood there telling the father or the aunt everything that just happened of her killing, right? So after she allowed the child to play with the relative, then the mother took the 3-year-old into a bedroom. It was bedroom off to the back, right? She then began to sing the child a lullaby as she placed her hand over the child's nose and mouth. And while she was doing so, he pinched her as well as scratched at her chest, which would indeed show markings, right? Bodily markings, as in before a child dies, the child is going to leave some type of markings, right? That's how parents go to jail. Something's going to be left behind, knowing that, yeah. And that's what indeed was there on her chest, was the scratch marks from him. So she covered the child's nose and mouth as he pinched her and scratched her chest. She straddled him until he completely stopped breathing, as well as he was unresponsive, as you know, right? Why would it take all this straddling a 3-year-old? He must have been a pretty, somewhat strong 3-year-old to have to straddle him as well as hold over his nose and mouth, right? It was possibly easier for her to do that with the 1-year-old. 3-year-olds are known to be not flimsy, no rambunctious or moving every which way, right? So more likely she did that for that reason. So following all of that destruction, she then took the life of her 6-month-old baby. The 6-month-old baby came after the 3-year-old. She used the same hand over mouth tactic on the 6-month-old baby she used on her other 2 children. And what's bizarre, it keeps being bizarre. There's always some bizarre activity or action that occurs before something else comes with it. This whole story is bizarre, right? The lullaby is bizarre. Yeah. Before killing. The feeding of the baby. She fed the baby before killing the baby. Before she put the 6-month-old, because to know that you were going to kill the baby anyway is to say, why feed it? Why give? That's almost like the Last Supper or the last meal. Don't they do inmates like that? Hasn't that been known to go down in history pertaining to execution and execution style? We're going to serve the last. What do you want as your last meal, right? She fed the baby before killing the baby, which I'm trying to make sense of. Why would a baby need a full stomach, as in a full course meal, with not even plates and all the rest, supper? Why would a 6-month-old baby need a full belly before death? Because to know that no oxygen will be there enough to survive, as in to allow a child to survive, is to make that just common sense is wrong there. Only way I can see you doing something like that is if you're wishing a child off peacefully or something. Well, let me give so that the baby can die peacefully. Let me give the baby a meal. Yeah, you would do something like that with a cancer patient or something like that, right? You wouldn't do that in one of these type of situations. As in, you're gonna if you're gonna feed a child, you're wishing them off peacefully, right? And yet to know that there was a struggle there with even the 6-month-old baby fighting for its life is to say, what was the point of that? I don't see with some of these people, right? So she allowed the baby to sleep. Because see, to know that a 6-month-old is 6 months old is to know that even a 6-month-old can't fight. For its life, I'm saying physically. It can fight airways, right? Through trying to breathe, right? Trying to breathe. Trying to take oxygen in. Air in and out, right? Breathing. And yet a 6-month-old can't fight her physically enough to fight her like that 3-year-old did with the scratching on the chest and pinching and all that, right? So why, if the baby is 6 months and can't put up a struggle, why put the baby to sleep in order to kill the baby? That's a very strange. The whole, yeah. She also sung the baby a lullaby. So, okay, so Killing Spree by Mommy. Let's just call this what it is. This should be the title. Killing Spree by Mommy. So after she killed all three of her children, she placed their bodies on the couch in the living room, right? To make it all appear as if the children were sleeping. That's strange and bizarre as well. I'm strange and bizarre, yet I hold no interest in killing people, right? And yet I'm able to see every action, which is indeed strange, right? Because that's never gonna work in real life. That sort of thing is never gonna work in real life. To say kill the babies in that way, because see, even the coroner's office are the ones that rule death. She wasn't able to see that far. And she more likely didn't care either way. You can tell that she didn't care, because to know I'm able to see that far, you don't ever want to take the chance to kill your children in that way. Because to cover a child's, because see, even hand marks and all the rest is to say lips are going to go blue. The mouth on kids is going to go blue. The face is going to be blue, and there might be, in fact, be indentations or something from your hand, which could have been left there. Who knows, right? Or prints or something from your hands, and even the coroner's office will know that sort of thing. Something is going to be left behind, and even tracking what you trying to say, cover yourself and act like, well, the kids died, and they were just all sleeping, because even that looks suspect with even 3 kids dying. The only way that's going to make sense to even police is if one child died, say the 6-month-old or something. They might try to say, well, was it SIDS or something? What was it? And yet you would even have to question even the aging of children that die pertaining to SIDS. As in children when they go to sleep and then they don't wake. Children oftentimes much more younger in the months and all the rest, right? The aging pertaining to that is, and how old is a baby when they die of SIDS, right? And so it doesn't look right, as in it looks odd, weird, bizarre, and strange for police or whoever to come in, coroner's office, whoever to come in within the home and say, why is 3 kids here that we have to pick up? Something is wrong with this picture. And not only that, I'm speaking on this overall, I'm speaking on her making it seem as if they were sleeping. That's a no-go. Because first of all, the only thing that will be wrong, first of all, they might in fact question, well, was it food poisoning or was it poisoning? To have 3 children laying there like that is to say somebody did something that they shouldn't have did. It could have been poisoning by ways of mouth or something, right? We're going to have to take it to the coroner's office to find out. Or there could have been carbon monoxide poisoning. And yet if there was a carbon monoxide poisoning within the home, the mother should be somewhat loopy or something. Right? The mother should be some type of out of it. She should be somewhat half breathing herself, just as much as these kids are dead. If she should either be dead or slightly breathing if it's carbon monoxide poisoning that happened to the kids. She shouldn't be healthy, a healthy, well-being, walking around, and yet the kids are whatever, right? Because even a father or aunt or whoever would have questioned that. Well, why is she healthy walking around and yet they're dead? I don't think nobody came in the house with butcher knives or anything and put the kids to death. Blood would be everywhere, right? There has to be some evidence of why the kids are even dead to begin with, sleeping like that. Because even parents have been known to give their children some form of medication or some form of substance or something to make the kids be less active, fidgety, Some kids have ADHD, all the rest, right? Some of them kids, not some of them kids, some kids have hyperactivity and yet not completely ADHD. And sometimes parents have been known to give them a pill, as in give all the kids a pill, and then that's, however much the dosage was to the body weight, right? Then the kid isn't waking up, right? Or all of them are not waking up, right? This isn't Heaven's Gate. As in, I'm saying, if it was, she should have went down with them, as in put herself down as well. Because the way that she put them down was like putting dogs down, as if life wasn't useful or something, or meaningful to her, right? Yeah, if you're gonna take the lives of kids, is to do it the Heaven's Gateway. Heaven's Gateway, as in all y'all go, and not just them. As in, why did they have to go? Adult that's logical in thinking, well, she wasn't, right? And reasoning is to say, I'm going to kill myself and let my kids live. I'm going to give the kids off to somebody else. I'm saying, if life is that bad and unhappy, why not, if you that unhappy, and even her mugshot showed that she was unhappy, right? It's to say, why not kill yourself? But before you do it, you either put your kids through foster adoption or something, right? More so close to home, which would be family, relatives. Because to know that family and relatives was in the home to begin with is to say, what is wrong with the picture? What is wrong with the situation to know that relatives was over there, the aunt was over there, the father was over there in the house, right? That's who the 3-year-old played with before she put the child to death. So what's wrong with the situation? Suicide would have worked on her end and not killing the kids, right? I'm just saying, any grown person would be able to think and reason that sort of thing out. As in, why would they have to suffer? And yeah, why would they need to suffer? As in, the kids wasn't unhappy. I'm trying to make sense of this. Kids usually are unhappy. They're not usually unhappy unless there's something going on, molestation, fondling, rape going on in the house, or some form of abuse going on in the house. But to say that the 3-year-old got a chance to play with a relative is to say the 3-year-old was more likely in a good mood, despite him witnessing what his mother did to his sibling, right? Why wouldn't you let kids to live? So that way you go ahead and commit suicide, let the children live, and then the children, whoever they're raised by, can give them a good home, and possibly everything can work out for the kid, and you be there with all your unhappy misery and death with the suicide, right? That's yeah. I'm agreeing to even myself on that. Dear viewers, because see, she's going to be unhappy either way. To serve time in jail and go to jail is to know you're now locked behind bars. Remember, before you killed your children, you were already deeply unhappy and miserable, right? And now your kids are gone. However much love, if she had any love or care, right? She had something, or maybe not, right? For her kids enough to kill them, she might not have loved them at all. That could be why she killed them, right? She might not have no love and care for herself. But going back to what I was saying, to know that you were miserable to begin with before you killed your kids, your kids is to say now you're going to be even more miserable. Because now your freedom has been taken away from you now that you're going to be in a jail cell. People have been known to serve life for killing their kids. So where's the escapism in it? The escapism for her would have been suicide. And not killing her kids. She could have left her kids breathing. They could have had their fun and growed up in somebody else's home, right? She could have taken her own life. And that would have, in fact, helped her escape out of misery. Because once again, to know that you're going into a jail cell is to say you're going to be even more miserable. Because to sit in a jail cell for years on end and hours on end is to know the likelihood of you killing your kids, if there's any guilt. She might could be a psychopath, right? That's to say they don't feel what other individuals feel pertaining to, well, I feel some empathy that I killed my kids. I regret that, right? She might not even regret it, right? But say if she do, that's to say she's going to be sitting in jail, possibly thinking about the fact that she ended her kids' lives, and now there's a deeper depression that's going to go with that. It just has to. Because the jail cell is there for you to consider your actions to begin with. That's why you go to jail. And yet if she serves life in jail, that's a long time to sit there till death, to just be there with your thoughts, thinking about what you did wrong, knowing there's no freedom, there's no getting out, there's no luck, there's nothing. Maybe she thought that there was going to be some luck being found in her killing her kids, but you see where it ended up. Damn. I'm able to see all the way around the situation. She might commit suicide in jail. Who knows, right? That's not me pinpointing on the negative. But to say that even some parents have been known to kill their kids and then say possibly regret it once they get their, because see, people have been known to go to jail and then improve their lives and work on their lives and then regret once again what they have did as in their past actions, right? Some people suffer in that, right? Which could in fact lead to them taking their lives. You never know in jail, unless they get some support while they're in jail. People have been known to make friends, right? In jail. It's just real, because this points on, because it has to point on depression of some kind, right? I'm sorry, that's my buzzard going off to let me know about these videos. Oops. What is this? Yeah, so I can indeed pause this. See that? It in fact pauses when I want it to pause. But going back to what I was saying, because depression indeed points in with this as well. It just has to. Because unhappiness leads to depression, or depression leads to some type of internal grief, feeling lost within. Not because you killed your kids, but even depression makes you feel like there's a loss or something, right? Identity or something, right? Let me get back to this. Yeah. So the friends of the homicidal mother, friends of she, right? They would have never thought that she would have taken the lives of the 3 children. They were the ones, the friends stated that she was unhappy. Because that's to ask the question. For friends to say that she was unhappy and it led to death, right, is to say once she is introduced, is, right, all in between, right, sitting in a jail cell even today, right, that's to say, how is her unhappiness now? Has she found freedom in not having kids? You see what I'm saying? Are you now free? The choice is yours in life. You can lead life, or you can, be dishonorable to life and let it go, as in off yourself or your kids, right? Dear viewers, question how free she is now. Man. So, the mother had a history of methamphetamines. There goes my language again. Let's just say meth. Because the way that I pronounce, sometimes when I pronounce, I sound like a hillbilly, right? When I pronounce certain things. A brown shade, right? Like I'm out in the backwoods somewhere trying to pronounce stuff fully, right? And yet that's just how I do things, right? Let's just say meth. Because I don't want my tongue to fall out my mouth and trying to pronounce things. So, meth. The mother had a history of meth usage, and her children had been removed from her home before because of her drug addiction. There was a time before, that the system removed her kids because of the drug addiction. All of that information was gathered from Maricopa County Attorney's Office. That's where that information comes from, if you want to know. Right. there, I'm gonna get to the system in a little bit. So there were witnesses and or observers of the mother's behaviors days before she took the lives of the children. Those witness accounts, they stated that her actions and behaviors were quite bizarre. That was before, once again, days before she took their lives. Remember, she had a history of drug use, right? Meth being one, and she had a drug addiction, right? So that's to say her actions were going to be bizarre, right? But the bizarre thing about that is she wasn't on drugs and she wasn't under the influence when she killed them. That's bizarre as well. Because to know that you're known to, even meth is known to restructure the brain, as in the functioning of brain. It has an impact on brain cells and even how you do stuff pertaining to choices. That's all psychology. So to know that drugs have been known to even restructure the processes of a brain, as in thinking and awareness and sensing. Some drugs don't even completely say flush out the system and all the rest for days on end, depending on the drug, right? And yet that's completely bizarre that she wasn't under the influence. And yet she wasn't under the influence when she killed them. There was no drugs in her system. Remember, you're tested for all that, right? That's to say how much damage was done to her brain over the years. Towards her brain. Because see, to be 22 years old is to say her brain was developed, and yet my brain is still being developed, and I'm almost 40, right? The brain doesn't die off and die out completely till you're completely dead, right? There's room for growth pertaining to brain cells and all the rest, right? Brain cells being damaged by drug usage. I just said that, right? And if you're not killing under the influences, to say, well, what were you killing under? Sorrow, unhappiness, and a damaged brain, I'm thinking. Because, yeah, I'm able to see that. Because, see, people act bizarre on drugs, as well as many of them have been known to act bizarre off drugs. Because even if you go through withdrawal, they should have asked even about that, right? Even if you go through withdrawal, some of that lasts for days on end, right? That could even lead up to some death or dying. She might not have had the money to afford drugs at that time. You don't know. Her body might have been calling for drugs, because there's a spiraling down of mood. When I got my drugs, I'm all good and clear, right? Some people are happy, perky, right? But if you don't have your fixes, to say, your mood might in fact be all over the place, and even people have been known to die in that. As in, even crackheads have been known to die, to kill people in that, right? People have been known to die, as well as people have been known to kill. That's how people die, right? With that, to know that she had a habit of drug usage is to say, well, when was the last time she had her fix, her meth? And was there any withdrawal there with that, right? Because the alteration in mind and mood with that sort of thing, as I say, there's going to be a up and down in the mood with that. Some days happy, some days sad, right? With that, which is how some people have been known to even be diagnosed as having bipolar when they don't. There's people that have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and all the rest, and they indeed don't have that. It's more likely the drug that's at play. Either with them using, their actions come out sporadic, all like that, which is how they're diagnosed, or the drug has been taken away and they're acting all sporadic like that, which leads to them being diagnosed, right? And so I'm able to see even that. Because to say that she was unhappy is to say something wasn't being provided or something. Either she was unhappy about the hardship of life, or she was unhappy because her mood could have been going through the changes knowing that she was using meth to begin with. Meth, cocaine, all the rest, that has, you got the high going up and the down coming down. That unhappiness, right? And I said that. I just used that for an example pertaining to even crackheads, how people die with that. Because to go too low and get to crying and feeling unhappy about life is to say whose life is going to be taken. And a person wouldn't even know why it's happening. The drug user possibly wouldn't even know because that's not their science. That's not their field and lane of work. Science is to understand mood, elevation, and lowering of the mood pertaining to drug usage. They just use, right? So that was stated about her not being under the influence of drugs when she killed her kids. That was all written in her court documents. The mother was again sober when she took their lives. Because see, this guy, it was this guy that I came across and he told me he was schizophrenic, right? And so anytime somebody get to talking to me or saying certain things, well, I got this mood, whatever, I want to know right then, well, have you ever used drugs? Have you ever did this? What have you, any chemical? Because even chemical affects brain. That's the point. The point to take a chemical within the body, that's all chemistry, right? It's to know that's going to mismanage your brain activity, right? It can make you hallucinate. It can make you walk funny, talk funny, all the rest, right? However you do, right? And yet he told me that he would use crack and all type of other stuff, right? And like I told him, more than likely you're not schizophrenic. More than likely, either when you go through withdrawal, whatever is going through the imbalance of your brain is the issue. You might, in fact, and then when I asked, well, did either one of your parents have any form of mental whatever? He said no, right? I said, do you still use drugs? That's what he said that he was doing. My thing is, let the drugs go and more than likely your state of mind and everything will balance back, right? The regret, I'm wondering once again with this woman when she goes to jail, because to know that she's completely sober now, as in she's not going to have access in jail. She might not. Even prison guards have been known to give inmates in jail drugs and stuff like that, bring drugs in and all the rest. But more than likely this probably won't be one of them situations, who knows, right? But to say once she served and be real sober is to say when that sober mind switch flip on is to say what type of regret is going to be there. Because she gonna be clean as the cleanest. She gonna be more clean than bleach clean white clothes, sitting in the jail cell thinking about everything, right? And her mind is going to readjust back. It's going to balance back as it should, because with no drugs being there is to say that's how it happens, right? Being in jail, having no access to no drugs, right? And that will be interesting to even interview her then, because I say once it's going to make all her situation going to make her a changed person once she's in jail. Because to not have no kids and not have them doing no visitation, right? It's to say even family members are going to be visiting, and many of them possibly mad. Even the child's father, I'm sure, is mad. Because why couldn't she just hand the kids off to the father? I'm not getting it. Unless he was abusive or something in the home. This is a lesson in itself. Remember, discovery is a lesson. Anytime you get unhappy and can't deal with life, you in fact indeed hand your kids off to somebody more knowledgeable in the area of being able to raise them if you feel you're too unhappy or wanting to end somebody's lives. life or lives, right? That's how you deal with the situation. Yeah. So the bond is set at 3 million as she faces a minimum sentence of life in prison for each count of murder. Her bond is at 3 million, right? Yeah. And she's to appear in court January 28th, 2020. So in closing, I feel that when it comes to children pertaining to, remember, her kids were taken away before, right? Some people might question, well, why did they give the kids back to her knowing they took her because she had a drug habit? There's all type of reasons why, right? And one thing I don't really like is when people blame the system. They'll blame the system before they blame the mother. Remember, a mother gave birth to the children despite the system intervene. Anytime a mother is a drug addict or something and the system pull the kids out of the home, it's to say if that, I feel the mother is at fault, because the mother is completely at fault. If the mother had her life in order, there will be no point of a system needing to intervene. Remember, the system doesn't have kids. The system just takes them in. Foster care, adoption process. The system comes later. The mother comes first. So the mother is once again indeed at fault. When stuff like this happen, I don't blame the system. I more so blame the mother. Because you chose it later and have your kids, right? As well as you took the lives of your kids. So she's at fault twice. I'm saying this from my end to hers. But say if somebody else, how you have situations, I'm saying this because oftentimes I see that even online, and I've heard even offline, people say or have said to me, the system is at fault because the children was pulled or removed out of the mother's home, and the kids ended up in somebody else's home, such as foster care, or they were adopted. The system placed them there, the kids, and that's, the kids ended up being killed by somebody in the adoption home or foster care home, or somebody outside the home killed the kid after the kid was removed away from the biological mother. Once again, that biological mother is still at fault, more so than the system, because the biological mother, once again, if she had her life in order, there will be no reason to even place a child or any kids in nobody's system. As in, get with the times. Speed it up in your mind logically with that. Some people don't have logic and common sense. Why would you? I can understand you might feel, well, even my past viewers have felt that, well, because I had one video, it had 5,000 views. I think one of them I removed down. The conversation with that sort of thing, it gets irritating when people say, well, the system is at fault. Well, the system comes later. Giving birth comes first. Who gives birth to a child? Does a system give birth to a child, or does a mother give birth to a child? A father doesn't even give birth to a child. He just helps in the process of getting a woman pregnant, right? I don't like stuff like that. Yeah. Because the one video I had made pertaining to a missing child out in Arizona when his remains were found, right? And people were pointing a finger. No, because they took him out. It's the system's fault. The system should have did this better. The system should have did that better. The system. The mother, if she knew that she couldn't care for him, she should have never had him to begin with. His life wouldn't even end up in the system's hands after she gave birth to him. Does that make sense? Because see, some of these people, 22 years old for this individual on this story, not the other one. 22 years old is a little bit too young to have 3 kids to begin with. 1 dog is enough for a person, even somebody older, right? You got to clean up them, they mess and all the rest, right? But to be 22 years old is to say that's a little bit too young to have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 6-month-old. Is to know the 6-month-old is going to be crying. The 3-year-old and the 1-year-old is going to be fighting. That's almost going into school age, and yet it's not right. And yet the issue it posed, if she was in poverty herself, as in not being able to afford, she might not have been able to afford despite the father being there in the situation, right? She might have wanted to escape him, who knows, right? But I think this points more towards her drug issues and her self-esteem issues, right? Yeah. She's at fault at all hands, as in all sides. Completely. Because see, to be 22 years old is for me to question. Because she had 3 long years to think this out, whether she wanted to have more kids. Well, 2.5. Let me calculate. If she had a 3-year-old, as I say, she had some type of experience with having a child, right? I'm sure the 3-year-old posed her some issues, possibly after birth taking care of the kid, whether it was financially, emotionally, or whatnot, right? That's to say she had experience enough to see how it was having a child. She had one for 3 years. And then she had one that was 1 year old, right? But then to have another one that you kill at 6 months older, to say you had enough experience to figure out whether you wanted to have more kids or not by the time you got to the second child. Enough to let them live. Sometimes people have baby after baby after baby that they know they can't take care of to begin with, which is how, once again, they end up killing a kid. Because I've seen people, and I know people personally, that had their first kid, and by the time they got to their second kid, they were deeply disgusted because they got pregnant a second time, and then now they having another kid and another kid. But by their second child or second kid, they didn't want no more. Some people wait till they get to their second kid and say, this is it, I don't want no more, I was disgusted having the first kid. And yet they keep popping out baby after baby. It's to say, well, you know, the more kids you have, the more unhappy you're going to be. Consider finances. As well as the children, your kids need there's emotional ties as bonding there, as an emotional needs that's going to be needed from you. That can't be gotten or given from foster care. Maybe it could. Or foster mother, father, maybe it could, right? And yet those children are your own. Those kids are your own, right? If you are unhappy, why keep having kids? Because see, even there's a lack of logic and reasoning in that. People have told me when they said, well, you know, I'm on my second kid, you know, then you see them again, now they got 4 kids, you know, and then you like, well, how's life? Well, I ain't doing too good. But then you see them again. I know a girl that had 7. No, not, yeah, 7. Because I grew up with her like a long grade school, right? And I'm thinking to myself, she's black. She's in an interracial relationship, right? Her mom and her father died, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you, that's not gonna work. That's never gonna work, because see, the more kids you pop out, the more mood goes down. That paints a full picture. The more kids I pop out, the more my mood is gonna go down. Because it asks, well, how much is clothes? How much is food? How much is going to the dentist for these kids, right? You can walk all over the situation to try to pinpoint and figure out what will make a mother unhappy in having kids, right? Some kids crawl all over you. They want your attention. Some kids want the mother or father attention more than the other kids, right? Some kids are needy, right? Some parents don't like that sort of thing. Some parents don't even provide emotional attachment to their kids at all, which leads to issues, which too leads to parents killing their kids sometimes, right? And yet even the most lovable parents could kill their kids, right? It could just be something there, mental illness, I don't know what with that, right? But that's something you wouldn't want to do. To not be able to afford it is to let it go, whether it's in time, money, or resources. Because even emotions are a resource. Not everybody considers that what I just said. Some people just look at property and say, well, that's a resource. Real estate and all this other stuff. Not real estate. Whatever. I'm just using that for an example, right? Well, even that could be a resource depending on how you view it. It could be real estate could be a resource pertaining into how you use it, as in it could be used for business purposes, right? I got rental property. I'm going to use that for business purposes. So that is indeed a resource. I'm going to rent out. Various people do that sort of thing. I'm not saying names. I'm going to go over here and do this quietly with my situation and rent out this property right quick, right? So I can go ahead and upload some videos or whatever, do business wise, right? That's to say that's a business resource. And yet that's one of my properties or something, right? But yeah, going back to what I was saying, emotions is indeed a resource. There's a capping off process, as in usually mothers can only give so much, right? Which is why if you can't give completely, you want to stop the flow of that, as in to close off on the children. Yeah. Because I've even heard people make excuses. I mean, I got words for even Africa on that. Africa. I love Africa, right? It will be wise to do business in Africa because how big it is and how wide the span of Africa. Yeah. You got West Africa, right? And yet I've heard people have indeed tried to even argue with me about Africa pertaining to why Africans have so many kids. Back in the day, that was considered wealth. The more kids you had in Africa, the more wealthy you were perceived to be, right? Even in certain parts of, to spin the globe is to speak about it, right? Even in certain parts of Africa, if you were heavy set, if you are heavy set, heavy weighted, right? Fat, right? Fat black African woman, right? They say African more so than black, right? If you're fat and you're African woman, are one, right? That's to say you are perceived as being wealthy because you might in fact have love handles and all the rest, right? Fat back and all the rest on the back, right? Fat back, let it swing back. You're considered in Africa wealthy. In America, you may or may not be if you're a businessman and you're fat, right? People might say, well, back in the day, nowadays everybody's fat, right? Obesity is at an all-time high, and yet certain parts of Africa that's not perceived as obesity, right? And yet, once again, when it comes to them having various kids, the wealth aspect, they might have seen it as wealth on their end, and yet I don't. That's not a disrespect towards their culture, their tradition in Africa, but to know that there's dying babies, there's babies being born, as in the mother might have had 10 kids already and now she's on her 15th kid, right? That's to say I can respect your culture and I understand tradition pertaining to your feeling that that's wealth, and yet there's no wealth. Because as you're having baby after baby, they're also dying from hunger and malnutrition. They're not being properly fed in Africa, right? People get mad at me about that sort of thing, more so black folks, because even they can't face the truth, and yet they should. Because nobody wants to see a baby in starvation, as in knowing that, because even that's the fault of the mother. If a dying baby in Africa is dying and yet the mother has 7 or 8 kids, right? That's to say, once again, that mother in Africa couldn't afford it, and yet she kept having babies, and now her babies are dying from starvation. So I have to blame that African mother for that sort of thing. I make people mad. And I'm going to make them mad because at the end of the day, the end result is somebody suffering, and yet it's not them. An African mother might indeed be suffering from hunger, but more likely her kids are going to suffer more than her because she has more of a developed body in Africa to be able to withstand hunger. An African mother in starvation, her facing starvation along with her 7 or 8 kids, her body is more fully developed. It might be malnourished, but is able to withstand days without food or water more so than a dying child is. And the baby is dying because she chose to have it with no money and no funds to be able to feed it, right? Even a healthy African baby that's sitting there is still less healthy and less likely to withstand starvation in Africa. Yeah. And so that's got to be on the fault of the mother. Somebody tried to, argue me with that sort of thing. And yet there's no argument because the truth stands in what I say. You got to look at it with a full scope, as in with a full brush. If I'm trying to drink water and the water is, say, not purified or clean, I'm in Africa, right? And I'm a mother and I got 8 kids, right? I don't think I'm going to take the chances to put my child through that same thing. Now, I've also been told, well, sex is pleasurable. Oftentimes Africans don't want to use condoms, right? They feel that they're wicked, or they feel that, they might be cursed or something evil might happen to them if they use condoms. I can understand that. All humans like sex is highly pleasurable, right? But once again, pregnancy comes out of that, and even Africans know that sort of thing. So you might in fact want to go some other type of way in having sexual relations in Africa to bypass the pregnancy, to keep the population down. See what I'm saying? As in, there has to be some type of way pertaining to even education. There's groups of all type of groups that have been funded to go over there and educate Africans about condom usage, whether they want to use it or not, whatever their fear is or whatever, and not wanting to use condoms. And yet there has to be some type of better way of even figuring that sort of thing, because it's even human to have sex. That's why we're here. That's not our sole purpose, but even that is instinctual. It's part of the human instinct, as well as preserving and basic needs or instincts, as well as intuition, right? Sex is indeed in that with the instincts, right? When Mother Nature calls, you answer what? When Mother Nature calls, you answer however you choose to answer it, right? And yet there should be something more preventive with that. As in, Africans might need to get with the times. Don't be mad that I'm with Discovery saying that sort of thing. Well, you're with the white man saying that sort of thing. Well, I need to. Because I know that African babies are dying is to allow me to say what I'm saying. That even they're going to have to get with the times. Progressing pertaining to something to prevent these pregnancies. Because the babies suffer more than... And that's what I don't like. I don't like when people say, well, don't say this or don't say that. But at the end of the day, the babies suffer more than the adults do. When you're not allowed to say anything, even pertaining to this cancel culture or political correctness, and you're not allowed to be frank, as in speak your mind, as in what could solve, cure, and analyzation pertaining to problems, right? You being able to scope and say what could be a solve or resolve, and people say, well, don't say this and that. No, at the end of the day, the children are going to suffer in the end. Does that or does that not make sense? Because I'm sure even with this story, this 22-year-old, somebody more than likely said something to her, possibly could have been preventive of something, right? To prevent her actions, and yet she more than likely said, don't say that. Now her kids are dead. That's what it leads to. Right? Political culture is at an all-time fuck off. As it needs to be. Fuck off and leave it where it's at, as in it needs to drive off a cliff with that sort of thing. Politically correct. It serves nobody. Because when it's time to solve and fix and resolve and progress further, The blocking and the stepping issue with that isn't a footing trying to progress. Is every time you say something that can resolve, somebody think that that's an issue. Well, how can we ever resolve the problem and get to somewhere if we can never say anything? Shows a stupid, petty mindset. Those type of people I choose to leave out my life. Because I'm over the stratosphere and thinking, as in what needs to be done and the reason of why. Yeah, with that sort of thing. That's not self-righteous. No, it's common sense, right? Sensibility. That's a huge word, right? I feel like I'm on the witness stand saying it. Yeah, so I think that's all to be said for now. Whatever with that, right? Yeah. Yeah, because see, if you don't use wisdom in life, then you're using failure in life. And to use failure in life is to be halted with the progress. You only got two choices in life. As in, to be provided is to provide yourself with that sort of thing. I can either use common sense or I can use failurehood. Because to go for failurehood is to say everything, all progress is going to stop. And that's where we at right here with the snowflake culture and the PC culture, politically correct. We are indeed in the dumbed down culture. That's what it leads to. I had a conversation about that. If you can never say nothing that can resolve stuff, is to say that's going to lead straight to a dumbed down culture. Because it start turning the minds off of the people, as to say they're not going to want to take any information in enough for them to think and be aware to fixing things and understanding. That's where the dumbed down culture comes in at play. And it's not a system completely at fault. No, it's the people. Because everybody has a choice. If I sit on camera, not everybody gonna want to hear and listen, right? They could in fact indeed be part of the dumbed down and culture. They could in fact indeed be part of the dumbed down culture themselves, as in the sheep, right? Them not wanting to hear people like me talk. There's other people out here that talk like me, right? And they don't even want to hear those people talk the way that I talk, right? They're sheep in the dumbed down culture. And yet they can't blame a system. People like that, the small-minded people, they're not able to think massively, as in far out stratosphere, right? Discovery is stratosphere. Mass media is stratosphere. Some people might say, well, mass media is at fault. No, not completely, because they know that you got a choice in what you want to see is to turn it on or turn it off. TV, radio, all the rest, right? We all got choices. People need to stop blaming this and blaming that and getting with the time and facing themselves, as in check your own self and your own logic and reasoning, whether you have it or not. You either got logic and reasoning, common sense, or you don't. Because to know I got the choice whether I want to see Oprah Winfrey or not is to cut her off if I don't, or turn her on if I want to see her. Mindsets like that I cannot get into. Face yourself with that. And to know I know what I'm speaking on pertaining to the dumbed down cultures, because dumbed down culture is everywhere. You can go everywhere and see it amongst the masses of people, as in the populations of people, with this dumbed down culture, not wanting to sit and learn and observe and understand and seek awareness or insight, right? Those are the first people, I'm repeating this for like the 10th time, those are the first people that say a system is at fault for everything. And yet those people don't even know how they think themselves. They don't even know how they take in information themselves. You can't blame no other people if you don't even know how you think yourself. If discovery does something wrong, I do this with everything, which is why I'm able to think so advanced with that sort of thing, right? As in a knowing, awareness, and insight. If discovery does something I don't like, I'm going to have to see how I think first. As in, I'm going to look at them and say, oh, I don't like that they did this, or I don't like the miscommunication that we had, right? Somebody might have made me where I can't stand them, right? But I'm going to think and observe how I'm perceiving them. Not everybody does that. As in, not everybody is able to do that sort of thing. They'll say, well, you're crazy for perceiving your own thoughts in relation to the connection with others. Well, to make better and greater connections with others is to know how I perceive things first anyways. That's the only way I'm going to have better relationships and all the rest with other individuals. I got to know myself, as in to know how I think and perceive other individuals out in the world before I can interact with them. Because if I don't know myself, and not, that's why we got all type of falling out and all type of killings and whatever type of drama or failed marriages and all type of relationship issues, because these people are getting married and all the rest of this other stuff, and they don't even know how they perceive other people. Some of these people don't even know how they perceive their husband and wife. They perceive them how they want to perceive them, right? I look at this is my husband, this is my wife, this is my whoever, right? With this woman that killed her kids, this is how I perceive my kids, and that might not even be reality. Does that make sense? However this woman was perceiving her children more than likely was not reality in a sense, or they would still be alive. I can connect the dots back to even heard this story, because I know I'm all off the train is to pull it back, right? You have to know, because even that can help prevent death. To not see reality, as in not understand how you perceiving all out here. Remember, life happens inside, it doesn't happen outside. Life is outside, but when it comes to your own life, it's internal, because that even dictates where your life is going to go from inside out, right? That's a discovery lesson from my own end to yours, right? It's to say, even with this mother killer, right? However she was feeling about herself on the inside, low self-esteem, depression, down, whatever, down and out, that led to her killing her kids, she was perceiving whatever reality she had within, and yet you can tell it wasn't completely reality. So you in fact are going to, deflect or put that on your kids enough to kill them. Well, it was the fault of the kids, so I had to take their life. And yet what she should have did was worked on her own thinking thought processes. And yet to be that young, 22, is to not know. I need to improve the way that I think and perceive the world, so that I can not only live better, but see and perceive my children differently. Because to know that she had to have been detached from reality is why her kids have been murdered to begin with. That there was a detachment from reality. Because see, no right thinking mother is going to put death or harm to their children in that way by taking their lives. So that was indeed a perception issue. Perception, perspective internally on the end of the mother that killed her children. She was not completely in reality when she did that. Not everybody knows that. That's why you got all type of people once again out here blaming systems. Well, let me just blame this president, let me blame that president, let me blame this, and let me blame that. No, you might in fact need to see how you're perceiving them, and why are you perceiving them in that way. Because if they're doing certain things that you don't like, you might in fact not want to support them, as in turn away and do something else, or go support somebody else, or just be unaware to them all completely and just walk away and not even show interest in them, right? Life is all about perceiving and perception, as well as perspective. Sometimes you outgrow other people. I've outgrown various people because they don't think the way that I think on my level of thinking. Even the way that I speak is more so even the level of Martin Luther King Jr. pertaining to perspective, because this is public relations. And even Martin Luther King, when he gave his speeches and all the rest, his speech, I have a dream and all that. Yeah, I have a dream. That's indeed public relations, right? Standing before the people. Even Martin Luther King had to know and understand his own perception, as in perspective and all the rest. Two different things, right? And yet it's all brain work, mind work, right? Seeing things there, seeing things that's not there, seeing things how you want it to be there. Before the people. As in Martin Luther King, I have a dream. That's perception. As if I have a dream, that's to say Martin Luther King was thinking in the back of his mind, I have a dream, I want my vision to come there, as in clarity. I want my dream to come into fruition, and the only way I can do that is to put action and everything forth with that sort of thing, right? The dream can be made. That's what he felt, right? And yet along with the vision and the dream and all the rest is a say perception. I have to know, me being Martin Luther King, how he was. I need to know how the people are thinking, whether it was black folks that were thinking we can't go no further, and him saying yes we can, or whether it was white people that were racist saying no, you can't do this because you are black. He needed to have a full in-depth understanding on a level of perception of how the people were thinking, so that he could bring about change pertaining to his vision of I have a dream. And that alone goes back pertaining to perspective, as in how am I going to put this forth. Vision, perception, and perspective. Now I bring in perspective. Now me being Martin Luther King, now I gotta get all this together so that I can go ahead and push the vision and the dream forward. As in I need all the backing of the people and the funding, whoever was helping to fund. I need all that. But I gotta understand what are my strengths and my weaknesses as Martin Luther King Jr. Even Oprah Winfrey knows herself about that sort of thing, because she does somewhat of the same stuff pertaining to even what she sells in media, mass media, right? I gotta know my own perspective pertaining to my strengths and weaknesses pertaining to how I'm going to walk the vision out, because even my footing can slip up if I don't understand fully knowing my weaknesses. Me being Martin Luther King Jr., anything can go wrong. People can start calling me out for certain things that I may or may not have been involved with. When they was speaking about supposedly he cheated, Martin Luther King cheated on his wife or whatever they was saying, scandal, I'm saying, pertaining to sleeping with women and all the rest, right? That's to say that involves his strengths and his weaknesses. That's all a perspective level, as an understanding where even that's going to meet perspective, public relations in relation to the public, because to put that out there, not his scandal or anything, whether it was false or truth, right? To know he would have to have his perspective in order, because even scandal can mess you up. Scandal can mess up a dream. I have a dream. It can then lead, in fact, other people can in fact be your downfall, as in they can be the one to corrupt the dream, as in end it before you even get there, right? Which is why people get to the podium, and before they do, keep secrets before they do. And I don't mean cheating or nothing like that, but not completely say all out in the public, in the atmosphere, to other people, oh, well, I have a dream and we're going to do all this. No, they usually do that in the back room or over in the board meeting room or whatever. And that's to prevent people from the outside from knowing before they step to the podium. Because if you got people amongst you that don't work for you, and they hear, they might be grouped up, they might be not have your best interest in mind, and to say they can even mess up the dream. And that's not speaking on Martin Luther King's situation. It is, but it isn't, but it even points in 2020. To have all the very wrong people around you, as to say, even them people could intercept, as in get in the way of your own perspective, as in how you see yourself. And that can mess up all type of dreams. It could drive it straight off a cliff, which has happened to many people, majority of people in society. They listen to other people's perspective more than their own, and they don't go full with their own dreams, right? And so that sort of thing, yeah, it leads to chaos in life and unhappiness. And when it comes to this story, I wonder what type of dreams this young individual had, this 22-year-old, to have kids back to back. As in, kids could be created all type of ways. Some people have had kids by accident. That's what I've been told, right? having kids, you want kids and find out you don't want kids, or you get with a man and then find out he don't want you, so you're left with kids, right? And yet I'm in question of even this 22-year-old, what type of dreams she either had or didn't have enough to be 22 to keep having kids. I'm not saying that's so bad. I'm not putting her down like that. But sometimes you want to consider your life as in your future before you start just having kids. Yeah. That type of thing. Because kids can push your life all the way back to the back seat. That's possibly what she was feeling, like there's no escape or something. I still think it was drugs, but you never know. She possibly could have been feeling, I can't escape. I'm drugged out. I got drug addiction. No, we don't know how the relationship was between her and the kid's father, and then she got the 3 kids, so maybe she was feeling stuck or something, right? Yeah, you always want to consider some type of dream or goal or something before you have kids. Yeah, with that sort of thing. And if it doesn't happen then you might want to start trying to put together some dreams or goals after you have kids, as in try to figure it out with other family members, because even some family members are known to be open and available to babysit kids. Grandparents do it all the time, right? Aunts and uncles, even nieces and nephews have been known to babysit, to take weight off your hands so that you can go to school or work more hours at your job, or some type of goals, whatever, right? That prevents stuff like this from happening. And yet not everybody is raised in environments with that, being told to have dreams and goals and all the rest, which is how sometimes 2 kids end up being killed, because of say that you wasn't provided that lesson to have some type of dreams, goals, or something for yourself. As I say, some people end up being brought up fueled in hopelessness, and they end up passing it down to their kids when they have kids. Well, there's no hope. That's prevalent in the black community, because I know I grew up in the hood, as to say, I seen very well with my own 2 eyes people creating babies, them having no hopes, no dreams, and then they just pass that mindset down to their kids. Suicide ends up skyrocketing with that. So I think that's all to be said. The ID logo stands up in the far left corner right here. Live now, Dark Waters, Murder in the Deep. New episodes. I can't even see. New episodes. To gain access to this right here is padlocked down, is to provide who you're subscribed to. You would in fact gain access to that sort of thing. Unlocked episodes. To receive an audio visual preview is to click the play button right here. It's all audio visual. Each one is set up like that. Unlocked series recommended for you. Shouts out to Lieutenant Joe Kenda as well as Paula. ID Go original series. These you could all skim through. Crime feed news. To gain access to the crime feed, crimefeed.com. It's usually right here. You would have clicked right within here and you would be directed to the outside. I might have to change that until whatever pops up. That might needs to be changed altogether. To receive a newsletter from Investigation Discovery is to type your email address in and click next, and you would in fact receive a newsletter from ID, Investigation Discovery. So I think that's all to be said for now, dear viewers. Let me know in the comment section what you think and feel about this story, as well as the other stories, and I'm going to enjoy my day. May you enjoy yours, and I'm gone.